What's up? Welcome to the Existential Stoic Podcast. Do you ever wish you were needed more or that you were, more important, more valuable? You're in luck because today we're going to talk about how to be indispensable. I'm Danny. I'm here with my buddy Randy. What's up, Randy?
Hey, Danny.
So, why do you think being indispensable is important?
Well, one of the most important feelings for most people is feeling important. And particularly around their workplace. They want to be known as, you know, doing, being good at something, contributing to something. And oftentimes that comes down to being indispensable. So when people can kind of figure that out, how to be indispensable, then it probably makes their whole life a lot better.
Yeah, it's often where security too is found, right? You're needed. You have the
And
right
plus,
one.
it's like a double-edged sword because the people who are indispensable really don't care. But the people who are totally dispensable, they want to be indispensable so bad, and it's just if they could just have it and bam, and it's just like you can't be indispensable if you're going to be like that. It just doesn't
Yeah,
work.
yeah, you have to have the right attitude for sure.
Hmm. Yeah, so
Good.
we're
So
going to be
we,
going over a
yeah,
few of
over
them
a bunch
today.
of tips. It's good.
Mm.
So my first one's pretty, I think, hopefully self-explanatory, but show up. I think that's important. I think, a lot of times, meet the sort of, meet the demands you put on yourself, be present when you're supposed to be on time. I think those are all good starting points to, start cultivating that right type of, I'm present, I'm here, I'm ready character.
Well, I mean, that's such a good point, and it's overlooked all the time. I think it was Woody Allen who said, I'm not sure if it was jokingly, but he's like 90% of success is showing up. And most people just never show up. They sell themselves short. They're like, oh, I can't do that, or they're just late, or whatever it is, and they just don't show up. Yeah, I think that's an
Well, I think,
essential one for
again,
being indispensable.
I think to that point too, like to that quote too, I think it's probably like also because like when you're afraid too, even showing up when you're afraid, like everything like entertainment and stuff,
Mm,
to make yourself there and present and useful.
definitely, you get a lot of freedom from showing up when you're afraid,
Yeah.
without a doubt. So my first one is be productive. A ton of people show up. They're just doing the bare minimum. They show up. They sit in a seat for 8 hours a day. They punch the clock. But during that 8 hours, they're probably doing maybe 2 hours of work. And so if you want to be indispensable during that 8 hours of work, do 8 hours of work. And then you'll be indispensable because you'll be turning out 4 times as much work as anyone else on a regular basis.
Yeah. And if your work only takes you like 2 or 3 hours, work on other stuff. you
Mm-hmm.
know?
I know.
Yeah.
That's what I did back when I was working as a vet. Any downtime because I was working in the emergency hospital, so sometimes you'd have to wait for appointments and stuff. Any downtime,
Yeah.
I was learning about building a business. I was getting other skills so that it wasn't wasted time.
Yeah, that's nice. And it's already work time. So you've already kind of like dedicated that block of time. It's not like you're, using time that you would think of as free or whatever. That's a good point. I
Mm-hmm.
like that one. Yeah, so my next one is cultivate a strong character and mental health. And I guess what I meant by this is like make sure you have your make sure you work on yourself first and you have your own health in line because I think you can't be indispensable if you're not in control of yourself. If you can't control your reactions, how you respond to things, if you're, having breakdowns, whatever, right? You need to also kind of be a stable character in order to do that.
Yeah, that's a great one too. Because if you're not taking care of yourself, you can't help anybody else. You really need to take care of yourself first. And it's such like I think it's such a misquoted type of thing in our society where we think we're supposed to bend over backwards for other people and not take care of ourselves. And it's such a backwards mentality. Like, sure, people go back to the Bible and they say, like love your neighbor as yourself. So you're supposed to love other people more, but it's like as yourself. You're supposed to
yeah.
love them as you love yourself. Don't forget that as yourself, you have to love yourself. Yeah, that's a great one. My next one is cultivate an old shoe type of personality. So I think I wrote about this about like Lyndon Johnson or somebody, how they just had like a good uh, no sharp edges to their personality, just kind of like an old shoe type of feel where people are just comfortable around you because those type of people in your life who are not comfortable to be around. It's very uncomfortable to be around them. They're definitely dispensable. They're the first people you're like, get them out. But the people who, it just feels good to be around them, they're indispensable. You're not going to want to get rid of them because even if they can't do what you need them to do, it just feels good to be with them.
That's a really good one too, because that's like, it makes me think of people who are like, good under pressure, who, are good with like lots of diverse people, so good at just interacting with people. I mean, if you think about any job interview you've ever gone on, like 80% of what they're checking is whether you're going to fit with the people you're working with, more so than actually that you can do the things they're asking you to do. I mean, it's so much based on, your personality and stuff. So I think that's a really good one. Cultivating that kind of like, even personality that everybody can kind of understand. I like that. Um, my last one is say no. So I think this is important. You can't, if you want to be indispensable, you can't overextend yourself, because otherwise, you're going to be spread too thin. And this goes back to kind of like also taking care of yourself, right? So you have to say no also to kind of a lot of things in order to do what you can do well and make yourself, crucial in those areas.
Yeah, that's a really good one because everybody wants to say yes. And they just think, oh, but if I take on all the work, then I'll be indispensable. And it's like, not really. Then they just kind of, run you over with work all the time,
Yeah.
And then they pass on the promotions to the other people.
Well, it's like, and that's like the thin line between, right, being taken advantage of and being actually indispensable.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So my last one, and this kind of goes back to something I learned back when I was applying to colleges. I remember I went to University of Pennsylvania, and I didn't go to school there, but I went to an admissions thing, and somebody asked them, "Is it better to take the really hard courses or better to get really good grades?" And they were like, "Both." And so like you need both,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's a good mentality because my last one is be well rounded and be really good at one thing or at the most important thing that you need to do. Because everybody's like, what? Well, should I be well rounded? Should I specialize in this one thing? And it's like both. Be well rounded and be extraordinarily good at what you're supposed to do. And if you do both of those things, then you're definitely going to be indispensable.
That's a good one. I like that. I think because it's true though too. It's not, and I think it does point to the fact that it's not easy either. It takes a lot of work and it takes a lot of dedication and it takes a lot of commitment to do it. And
Mm-hmm.
they were probably right. You should do both in that case. All right.
Absolutely.
So there you have it. Hopefully you can all be indispensable now. This was a quick fix for episode. We'll be back later this week with a full length episode. Check us out on YouTube, all the podcast, services, all of that. Like, subscribe, and share. It helps us out a lot. And until then, though, later, Andy.
Later, Danny.